Why don't modern Mercedes engines last like the legendary OM617 that's still running after 40 years? You'd think it's because old German engineering was just better, but it has nothing to do with nostalgia or rose-colored glasses. Meet the OM617, the cockroach of engines. It's not fast, it's not flashy, but holy moly, it'll outlive your car, your grandkids, and probably humanity itself. This 5-cylinder diesel has become a legend in its own right, powering everything from 1970s Mercedes sedans to modern swapped project cars. Mercedes didn't just build this engine, they over-engineered it like they expected it to power tanks or serve as humanity's backup plan after the apocalypse. Unlike today's complex engines with dozens of sensors and computers, the OM617 is mechanical simplicity perfected. But here's the kicker. While modern Mercedes engines need major repairs at 100,000 miles, the OM617 are just getting broken in. One taxi driver in Germany recently hit 900,000 miles on his original engine with nothing more than oil changes and basic maintenance. So what makes this 40-year-old diesel so indestructible when modern engines can't even reach half its lifespan? The OM617 isn't just reliable by accident, it's the result of Mercedes' 1970s engineering philosophy that prioritized longevity over everything else. Here's what's really happening under the hood. This is a 3.0-liter inline-5 diesel that produces a modest 77 to 125 horsepower depending on the variant. You'd think that's pathetically slow by today's standards, but the real genius is in what Mercedes didn't do. Unlike modern engines with turbochargers, direct injection, and variable valve timing, the OM617 uses indirect injection through pre-combustion chambers. This creates a gentler combustion process that's easier on internal components. The engine block is cast iron, not aluminum like today's weight-saving designs. That extra mass acts like a heat sink, keeping temperatures stable and reducing thermal stress on gaskets and seals. But here's where Mercedes really over-engineered this thing. The crankshaft is forged steel, not cast iron. The connecting rods are massive compared to modern engines. Even the cylinder head bolts are designed with safety margins that would make today's accountants cry. Think of it like comparing a Swiss watch to a smartphone. The smartphone does more, but the watch will still be ticking in 50 years. The OM617's fuel system is purely mechanical with a Bosch injection pump that doesn't need computers, sensors, or software updates. When something breaks, you can actually see it and fix it with basic tools. That's why mechanics who work on these engines call them agricultural. They're built like farm equipment that needs to run for decades without fancy maintenance facilities. Now let's talk about why these engines actually refuse to die in the real world. According to Mercedes-Benz classic documentation, OM617 engines routinely exceed 500,000 miles with proper maintenance. But that's just the beginning. There are documented cases of these engines reaching over 1 million miles in taxi service. For example, a 1981 Mercedes 300D taxi in Lebanon ran for 2.9 million kilometers. That's 1.8 million miles, before the body literally fell apart around the engine. The OM617 was still running when they scrapped the car. Unlike modern diesels that need expensive particulate filters and DEF fluid, the OM617 burns clean through pure mechanical design. The indirect injection system creates a slower, more complete burn that produces less soot and stress. Here's what really separates this engine from everything else: thermal management. The OM617 runs cooler than modern engines because it's not trying to extract maximum power from every drop of fuel. Mercedes designed it to cruise at 60% capacity all day long. Cooling system uses a simple thermostat and mechanical fan. No electric fans, no complex radiator designs, and no plastic components that crack after 10 years. When something does wear out, replacement parts are still available and affordable, but here's the secret sauce: the OM617's oil system. This engine holds 8.5 liters of oil compared to modern engines that hold 4 to 5 liters. More oil means better lubrication, cooler operating temperatures, and longer intervals between changes. The oil pump is gear-driven directly off the crankshaft, not chain-driven like modern engines where timing chain stretch can destroy the entire motor. It's mechanical simplicity that just works. That's why you'll find OM617 engines in everything from converted school buses to marine applications. They're the diesel equivalent of a hammer: simple, reliable, and nearly impossible to break. Here's where things get really interesting. Let's compare the OM617 directly to modern Mercedes diesels and see why the old engine wins every time. You'd think newer technology would be better, but modern Mercedes diesels are actually less reliable than this 40-year-old design. Take the current OM654 engine in the C-Class and E-Class. It produces 261 horsepower from 2.0 liters. Impressive power density. But here's the problem: it needs AdBlue fluid, has a particulate filter that clogs, uses a timing chain that stretches, and has over 50 sensors that that can fail. The OM617 has zero of these problems. No emissions equipment to clog, no timing chain to stretch, no sensors to malfunction. When an OM617 breaks down, it's usually something simple like a fuel filter or glow plug, parts that cost under $50. But here's the real kicker: maintenance costs. A modern Mercedes diesel service can cost $800 to $1,200 with specialized diagnostic equipment required. An OM617 service costs $150 in parts and can be done in any garage with basic tools. The complexity difference is staggering. Modern diesels have high-pressure fuel systems operating at 30,000 plus pounds per square inch. The OM617 runs at 2,000 pounds per square inch through a simple mechanical pump. When modern fuel systems fail, you're looking at $3,000 to $5,000 repairs. When an OM617 injection pump needs service, it's $500 to $800 for a complete rebuild. Even the turbocharging is different. Modern engines use variable geometry turbos with electronic actuators that fail and cost $2,500 to replace. The OM617's simple Garrett T3 turbo has one moving part, the wastegate, and costs $300 used. That's why smart Mercedes enthusiasts are actually going backwards in time, seeking out OM617 powered cars instead of buying new ones. Now let's talk about the OM617's few weaknesses and how to prevent them from becoming expensive problems. You'd think a bulletproof engine has no issues, but even the legendary OM617 has some common failure points that every owner should know about. The biggest enemy of the OM617 is actually neglect, not mechanical failure. These engines are so reliable that owners often forget basic maintenance until something goes wrong. Here's the most common problem: glow plug failure. The OM617 uses pencil-type glow plugs that eventually burn out. When they fail, cold starting becomes difficult or impossible. The good news: glow plugs cost $15 each and take 10 minutes to replace. But here's where owners make expensive mistakes. They ignore the glow plug warning light and keep cranking the engine. This can damage the starter motor or run down the battery. Unlike modern engines with sophisticated cold start systems, the OM617 absolutely needs working glow plugs in cold weather. The second most common issue is injection pump timing. Over time, the timing chain that drives the injection pump can stretch slightly, retarding the injection timing. This causes hard starting, rough idle, and reduced power. The symptoms are subtle at first. Maybe the engine takes an extra second to start or idles slightly rough when cold. Many owners ignore these signs until the engine won't start at all. Here's the fix: injection pump timing adjustment costs $200 to $300 at a diesel shop and takes about an hour. It's preventive maintenance that should be done every 100,000 miles, but most owners skip it because the engine still runs. The third common problem is fuel system contamination. The OM617's mechanical injection system is sensitive to water and debris in the fuel. Modern diesel fuel isn't as clean as the fuel these engines were designed for in the 1970s. The solution is simple: change the fuel filter religiously every 15,000 miles and use a quality fuel additive to prevent water accumulation. A $25 fuel filter prevents thousands in injection pump damage. Here's what separates smart OM617 owners from those who have problems: they treat maintenance as insurance, not as an expense. Spending $300 annually on preventive maintenance prevents $3,000 repair bills. The OM617 wasn't just one engine. Mercedes produced several variants that found their way into different applications, each with its own character. You'd think Mercedes just made one version and called it good, but they actually refined this engine throughout its production run from 1974 to 1991. Life for the OM617 began with the OM617.91 and the W115240D 3.0, but the OM617 family gained immense popularity with the second variation, the OM617.912. This was the naturally aspirated version that produced 80 horsepower and became the workhorse in the iconic W123-300D sedans and wagons. This was the version that really put the OM617 on the map, slow but bulletproof. Then came the OM617.950, the turbocharged version that changed everything. Unlike modern turbo engines that use the turbo for power, Mercedes added it primarily for altitude compensation and smoother power delivery. This bumped power to 111 to 121 horsepower and debuted in the W116300SD, making it the world's first production turbo diesel sedan. Here's where things get interesting. The turbocharged OM617 uses a Garrett T3 turbocharger that's built like a tank. No variable geometry, no electronic controls, just a simple wastegate that opens when boost hits 8.5 to 10 psi. You can rebuild these turbos in your garage with basic tools. The OM617.952 was the final evolution, found in late W123 and W126 models. Mercedes refined the injection timing and improved the glow plug system, making cold starts more reliable in harsh climates. But the real genius was in the applications. Mercedes put this engine in everything: W123 sedans, W126 S-Class, W460 G-Wagons, and even some commercial vehicles. The same basic engine that powered luxury sedans also hauled cargo across Africa. Unlike modern engines that are application-specific, the OM617 was truly universal. The mounting points, accessory drives, and even the transmission bolt patterns remain consistent across platforms. That's why today's enthusiasts can easily swap OM617s into everything from classic Mercedes to modern project cars. The engine bay packaging and mounting systems were designed for serviceability, not maximum space efficiency. Here's the shocking truth about OM617 maintenance. It's almost embarrassingly simple compared to modern engines. You'd think a 40-year-old engine would be high maintenance, but the OM617 actually requires less attention than most modern diesels. The maintenance schedule is straightforward. Oil changes every 6,000 miles, fuel filter every 15,000 miles, and valve adjustments every 30,000 miles. That's it. No DPF regeneration cycles, no DEF fluid, and no complex emission system maintenance. Unlike modern engines with 20-plus sensors that can fail, the OM617 has maybe 5 electrical components: glow plugs, an oil pressure switch, a temperature sender, an alternator, and a starter. When something breaks, you can actually see it and diagnose it without a computer. The valve adjustment is where this engine really shines. Modern engines use hydraulic lifters that eventually fail and cost thousands to replace. The OM617 uses solid lifters with adjustable rocker arms. You can set the valve clearances with a feeler gauge and wrench in about an hour. Here's what mechanics love about these engines: everything is accessible. The injection pump is right on top, the glow plugs unscrew easily, and you can see the entire engine without removing plastic covers. The fuel system maintenance is equally simple. The mechanical injection pump has one adjustment screw for idle speed and another for maximum fuel delivery. No high-pressure fuel rails, no piezo injectors, and no fuel pressure sensors that cost $500 each. When the injection pump does need service, usually around 200,000 miles, it's rebuildable. Unlike modern common rail systems that require complete replacement, Bosch injection pumps can be rebuilt by diesel shops for a fraction of the cost. The cooling system uses a simple brass radiator, rubber hoses, and a mechanical thermostat. No plastic expansion tanks that crack, no electric cooling fans with expensive control modules. When the thermostat fails, it's a $15 part and 30 minutes of work. That's why OM617 ownership costs are so low. Parts are cheap, labor is simple, and most maintenance can be done in your driveway with basic tools. So why can't Mercedes build engines like the OM617 anymore? The answer will shock you, and it's not what you think. You'd assume it's because of emissions regulations or fuel economy standards, but the real reason is economics and consumer expectations. Modern engines are designed for a completely different world. Today's Mercedes customers expect 300-plus horsepower, 0 to 60 times under 6 seconds, and 30-plus miles per gallon fuel economy. The OM617's leisurely 18-second 0 to 60 times simply won't sell cars in 2025. But here's the kicker. Modern engines are designed to fail, not maliciously, but through planned obsolescence. Manufacturers need customers to buy new cars every 5 to 7 years, not drive the same car for 30 years like OM617 owners do. Unlike the OM617's cast iron construction, modern engines use aluminum blocks with steel cylinder liners that can separate over time. Plastic intake manifolds replace cast aluminum ones. Timing chains stretch, whereas the OM617 uses gear-driven timing that lasts forever. The complexity is staggering. Modern Mercedes diesels have over 200 sensors compared to the OM617's handful. Each sensor is a potential failure point that can leave you stranded. The OM617's mechanical systems keep running even when electrical components fail. Environmental regulations also changed everything. Modern diesels need particulate filters, SCR systems, and EGR valves that clog and fail. The OM617's simple combustion process was naturally cleaner without any of these complex systems. But here's where things get interesting for the future. OM617 values are skyrocketing. Clean, low-mileage examples now sell for $15,000 to $25,000, more than they cost new in 1980. Enthusiasts are swapping these engines into everything from classic Mercedes to modern chassis. The mechanical simplicity makes them perfect for off-grid applications, marine use, and anywhere reliability matters more than performance. Mercedes themselves have acknowledged the OM617's legendary status. Their classic car division still supports these engines with parts and service, recognizing them as some of the finest engines ever produced. So until manufacturers prioritize longevity over quarterly profits, the OM617 will remain the gold standard for diesel reliability. It's not just an engine, it's proof that sometimes simpler really is better. What's your experience with the OM617? Have you driven one of these legendary diesels? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into automotive legends that refuse to die.